Okay, WWE fans, this one's for you. I'm not going to pick on you. I'm just going to suggest the best way, in my opinion, to get to Roman Reigns and Goldberg and Big Drew McIntyre. These three players, it seems, what are they going to do with them and what could they do? Here's just my thought. So Royal Rumble comes along, and I guess we're definitely going to get Goldberg challenging Drew McIntyre for the Bruno belt, the WWE heavyweight title. I still call it the WWE World Heavyweight title. It's the Bruno belt, folks. It's the one that started with Buddy Rogers in 1963, all the way up through the Bruno years, the Hogan years, the Savage, Ultimate Warrior, and so forth. Bob Backlund, of course, who you can see me interviewing on the Mike Messier YouTube channel. So how do you do this? Goldberg has never held that title, by the way. Back in the 2003 era, what he held was the World Heavyweight title, the big gold belt, the facsimile of the big gold belt anyway, that Triple H had, and that was really just a fabricated championship. That was not the Bruno belt. And I believe when he beat Kevin Owens a couple of years ago and then lost to Goldberg at Mania that year, that was the Universal title. And going forth, this past Wrestlemania, when Goldberg had defeated The Fiend, that was for the Universal title, and then he lost that title to good old Braun Strowman, who hasn't done much of shit since. So what do you do for this Royal Rumble? Well, a lot of people are predicting that poor Drew McIntyre is going to have to succumb to Goldberg to set up a Goldberg possible match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, title versus title, or champion versus champion at least. Although you would expect it to be title versus title in a Mania main event. Spear versus spear. Of course, they didn't have that match last year because Roman was COVID conscious and so forth and stayed away. That's fine. So what do we do here? This is my theory, my hypotenuse. Not that they should do this. What I would do if I had the pencil. I would basically have a pretty good, 4 or 5 minute match. Look, Goldberg's what, 53, 54 at this point. So you want to keep it pretty basic, just a hard-hitting affair. And you have it where there's some type of backstage shenanigans, where Roman Reigns, who's got a different match that night, is kind of picking on Drew McIntyre or calling him the secondary champion, and I'm the head of the table, and I beat you at Survivor Series, and all that happy horse shit. So you get to this match, and basically, however it's going down, you get your ref bump, or you get your somewhat or something, and you get big old Roman Reigns coming out and aiming for Big Drew with a nice spear, but Drew sidesteps Roman's spear. Now, of course, this is the middle of the Goldberg match. It's Drew versus Goldberg, and Roman's interfering. Roman is charging for the spear on Big Drew, but Drew steps out of the way. Roman hits Goldberg with a spear, a nice spear, and then Roman is just so confused that he just leaves, or he's just whatever. He's just Roman, so he leaves. He doesn't give a shit. He speared the wrong guy, but he's okay with it. He leaves. The referee gets back up. Drew doesn't see the spear, didn't see it happening. And Drew shakes off his cobwebs. Goldberg gets back to his feet. And maybe Goldberg, even though he's beat up and hurt, he charges Drew, but he gets hit with a Claymore kick in the head. And 1, 2, 3, Drew retains with what might be discovered or thought of as an upset over Goldberg. So then you've got Drew with a pin over Goldberg, but Goldberg has his butt, as Shane Douglas would say, because he wasn't pinned without interference from Roman. Now, of course, Goldberg's angry at Roman. So there you go. You have your goddamn WrestleMania match. You've protected Goldberg because, yes, he got pinned, but he has a butt because there was outside interference. And Drew is still your champion, still your lineage champion. So first of all, what do you do at WrestleMania for Drew? You could do something with him and The Fiend. I could be forgetting something, but I don't think The Fiend or the crispy burnt Fiend has been in there with Drew. If you wanted to try to build up Braun Strowman again, I guess you could try that. You could try to build up Braun. I mean, Braun and Drew are two big bulls. You could have that match. You could, I think The Rock is off the table for this year's Mania, and I don't think Rock and Drew has much of a sizzle anyway. It's just not a good matchup. There's no interest in that. So you could have Drew versus Keith Lee. They just had a match last night on Raw. I guess we've already wasted that on a Raw, so I mean, what the fuck? I think Drew headed into Mania. You've done Drew and Orton already a few times. You have your job squad guys like your Dolph Ziggler's. If you really wanted to squeeze the guy for one last big run, you could do Sheamus versus Drew. You could finally pull the trigger on that. I mean, that's really kind of like a B pay-per-view match. That's more like a TLC or a Payback pay-per-view. No one gives a fuck about Sheamus, let's be honest. But you could do that if you wanted to just B-team that title for the Mania. But what the fuck? I mean, if I had to, I'd say you just trot out The Fiend again because people like him and so forth. So you have The Fiend versus Drew at Mania. And then for your Roman match, now you've got Goldberg and Roman. And so there's a grudge there because, you know, Roman cost Goldberg his match with Drew. And basically, you break tradition and you have a heel, Roman, although now that he's a heel, he's more popular. You have Roman beat Goldberg at Mania more or less clean. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could have his Arn Anderson Samoan cousin jump in there, Jey Uso, or not. I mean, I think it would be better to not. So, yes, what you've effectively done is you've had Goldberg lose at the Royal Rumble, not clean, but it still had him lose, and you had him lose at Mania. You had him lose to Drew, and you had him lose to Roman. And I think the thing with Goldberg, folks, is people are just impressed that he's walking, to be honest. They're just impressed that he's in the ring. They don't expect a fucking good match from Goldberg. They expect some good promos, which he's done. And he is starting to look like your father. He's starting to look like your, you know, big, tough, scary dad who you don't want to fuck his daughter because he'll kill you. So there's my goddamn WrestleMania outlook. I've just booked WWE, probably better than they could. And they should have hired me, as we all fucking know. So Mike Messier, all you assholes who watch wrestling and WWE, I've just laid it out for you. You can leave a thought, you can leave a comment or not. Whatever. You can share the videos or not. It's a free fucking country, at least for now. All right, Mike Messier YouTube channel. Mike's Pro Wrestling Memories, Mike's Pro Wrestling Rants, all for you fans.